Good morning and welcome to Highland Park Highlights. I am your host, Rod Liggins. It's just about 1 after 8 this Monday morning. It's about 51 degrees outside, and there was slight drizzle as I was coming in, but it's expected to be a lot clearer later in the day. But it won't be as hot as we've had those 70 and 80 degree days over the past week, so you make sure you dress accordingly. We want to thank you for joining us this morning and kicking off your week. We're going to start first with a few national and local headlines. It's now the defense turn in the Derek Chovin murder trial. The former Minneapolis police officer faces multiple murder charges in the death of George Floyd. Last week, prosecutors presented witnesses in the medical and law enforcement fields showing that Floyd's death was caused by Chovin kneeling on Floyd's neck for nearly 10 minutes. Chauvin's former police chief and supervisor stated under oath that kneeling on a person's neck is not proper protocol for a law enforcement officer. Excuse me. Also, the Minneapolis National Guard were called out last night after yet another black man was shot and killed by local law enforcement. This time, the shooting left a 20-year-old man dead. Witnesses say the man was shot just seconds after exiting his vehicle following police orders. Police, however, say they were trying to take the man into custody after they determined he had outstanding warrants during a traffic stop. He got back into his vehicle and an officer shot him, police said. He then drove several blocks before striking another vehicle. The man's mother said he called her as he was being pulled over, stating the reason was having multiple air fresheners hanging around his rearview mirror. Minutes later, his girlfriend called his mother, stating that her son had been shot. One of two police officers accused of pepper spraying and pointing their guns at a black Army officer during a traffic stop has since been fired. This was announced last night from a Virginia town official. This was hours after Virginia's governor called for an independent investigation into the case. The town of Windsor said in a statement that it joined calls from elected officials, including Governor Ralph Northam, in requesting an investigation by Virginia State Police into the December 2020 encounter, which two Windsor officers were accused of drawing their guns and pointing them at a U.S. Army second lieutenant by the name of Karan Nazario and using a slang term to suggest he was facing execution. Nazario, who is black and Latino, was pepper sprayed and knocked to the ground by the officers Joe Gutierrez and Daniel Crocker, according to the lawsuit filed earlier this month. A little bit closer to home, for the third consecutive week, the state of Michigan leads the nation in new COVID-19 cases. Governor Gretchen Whitmer stopped short of shutting down the state, but she did request that all school contact sports be postponed for the next 2 weeks, as well as dining out be held off for the next 2 weeks. This is because the numbers have begun to skyrocket here in the state, and a number of medical personnel are trying to track down exactly what's causing the spike. Recent reports show the spike in numbers are attributed to those between the ages of 25 and 40. Governor Whitmer continues to ask all residents to get vaccinated, and I want to give a shout out to all of those who came out over the past few weeks here in Highland Park to take part in the vaccination process here at the Ford Rec Center. We are asking that if you did not get the chance to get vaccinated during those days, to please contact your local medical facilities, the hospitals, or go online to michigan.gov, the state's website, and they will be able to let you know where you can go to get vaccinated. This is the only way we can truly defeat this virus. School districts in Michigan are also going to be busier than usual this week. Testing for COVID-19 kicks off today for teenage student athletes, and school leaders say they will consult with county health departments and school boards over whether data supports keeping schools open for in-person learning. A number of schools have state and federal testing that they have to take part in over the next few weeks, and they are still seeking ways to get this either postponed or delayed due to the COVID-19 virus. A number of students and a number of schools have had to be quarantined because more than 40 students at one school alone had contracted the virus, and over 400 students believe be in contact with those that have tested positive for the virus. This comes after Governor Whitmer has asked on Friday that superintendents of schools across the state voluntarily close for the next 2 weeks and send teens into virtual learning in order to combat the COVID-19 virus. Many schools still choose at this time to open up for in-school learning. Detroit police are investigating the shooting of a Detroit fire truck over the weekend. Witnesses say that details are very scarce, but someone decided to start open fire on a fire truck. No one was injured, and there are no suspects at this time in custody. Police are asking that if you were a witness to it or have any information, that you would please contact the Detroit Police Department. Coming up, we will have, right after this break, we'll have a guest speaker here to talk about fire safety, and that'll be none other than Highland Park's own fire chief. So make sure you go grab a cup of coffee, grab yourself some breakfast, but please do come back and join us, and we'll be right back after this break.
I'm joined today by Maureen Taylor and Louis Fisker to let you know about a new financial empowerment center located in the Wayne County Treasurer's Office.
Do you know someone, family or friends, that need help with finances? Do you know people having trouble making ends meet, especially with property taxes or other payments? The Detroit Financial Empowerment Center can help. Treasurer Sabri invites you to visit the new Financial Empowerment Center, 400 Monroe, on the 5th floor in downtown Detroit.
We've partnered with the Wayne County Treasurer's Office and the City of Detroit to provide free one-on-one financial counseling to help you address problems related to utility bills, property or income taxes, credit repair, and other financial matters. Our professional counselors can also help you plan your monthly budget and increase your credit score.
This service is available to all Wayne County residents. For free and private financial counseling, contact the center at 313-322-6222 and make an appointment today.
If you need a car today, use credit, bruise credit, or in need of a financial miracle, my name is Mr. Green, the Financing King. Got a small down payment and proof of income. You can drive away today in a new or pre-owned car, truck, or SUV. Call me, Mr. Green, 313-350-4188. I have over 35 years of experience and an unlimited selection of reliable, certified vehicles. Call Mr. Green, the Financing King, 313-350-4188.
Watch Anthony Adams. We, Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We, Detroit. We deserve better.
I'm attorney Carl Collins III. I'm attorney Carl Collins III. Hello, I'm attorney Carl Collins III. If you've been injured and you need help, make the best call on your worst day. Call me at 855-CAR-HIT-YOU. That's 855-CAR-HIT-YOU.
Good morning and welcome back to Highland Park Highlights. I'm your host, Rod Liggins. It is 10 after 8 on this Monday morning, and we're glad to be joined by Highland Park Fire Chief Eric Hollowell. First, let me say welcome. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
And the first question I always wanted to know is, what made you become a firefighter? We were talking earlier about, as kids, when you see the fire trucks, you want to go where the action is, and you'll chase it down, whether your parents are calling you to come back or whatever. But what is it about becoming a firefighter that attracted you?
You kind of took away my answer there for a second. But no, I guess, what's the best way to call it? It's a feeling. It's a job that I think once you get into it, if you really want to do it, you will enjoy it. And you love doing it.
So take me back to, let's say, when did you know this is what you wanted to do? Like, let's say you graduated from high school, now you're looking, and what events took place that led you to become a firefighter?
Pretty much in 11th grade, I had already made my mind up as to what I wanted to do.
Really?
Yeah. But then after that, once I graduated, I became a cadet here for the city, for the police department, well, public safety back then. And here I sit today.
Now, I'm just thinking while you said that, in 11th grade, I was just praying I made it to the 12th grade because, man, my grades were not that great. I didn't graduate cum laude or cum laude. I graduated thank you laude because I was like,
Neither did I.
I had to make sure because algebra kicked my behind and a couple other classes. Well, let me ask you this then. What's it been like for you to now be the top firefighter in the city of Highland Park?
First off, it's an honor to be at this level. But then the next thing is, I think back, kind of like to what we were talking about now. I think back to when I was a cadet here. I think back, I was that little kid here now, and now I'm the guy. It can be challenging at times. You know, you come across 10 different attitudes that day that you're in the same building with. It can be a little rough, but you know.
And that's the thing. Firefighter is unlike any other position I've seen, not just in public service, but across the board, because you can be around someone pretty much for far more than an 8-hour shift.
Oh, yeah.
Because you guys have to be on call around the clock, and you guys have had to have a need to really become a lot more aggressive in how you approach things and utilizing every asset in your arsenal. You spoke about challenging in the, let's say, in fighting fires. What are some of the things that you find that are most challenging in the job itself when you go out? You get the call and you get out there. What are some of the challenges that you face as you seek to extinguish the flames?
The biggest of them all is the hydrant. A lot of times you may come across although right now we are repairing and replacing a lot of hydrants here in the city, but there were times when you come across hydrants that don't work or they don't have enough pressure for you. That's the main tool of this job.
Right.
So without the water, that's the big challenge. And then the other one turns out, especially we had an apartment building the other day. These guys, they weren't able to start suppression because they had to make sure that everybody was out of the building first. So that's a challenge for the crew that's out there. You got to rescue whoever's in the building, and then once you finish with that, you immediately go to suppression, putting the fire out, and it can be challenging at times.
So is that the standard operating procedure before you begin to extinguish? You seek to find if there's anyone alive in the building or in the structure?
Lives are always priority one.
Okay.
But when I say that, I need to be clear about something. I'm not going to send my crew or allow my crew to go into something that's unsafe for them. It does me no good to have the first responders down now. So, but yes, primarily that's our function. We go after to make sure that everybody's out of the home or building or wherever it is first.
Okay. Now, I know that, and I'm sure you can remember back in school, we used to wish for fire drills. That was a break. As long as it wasn't raining outside or cold, that was a great time to get an escape and come outside. And we learned a lot about that. As you got older, you realized this was important because you know things can happen. But, and as a kid, and I don't want to, slam my own parents, but I don't remember us having fire drills in the house. But I do remember growing up, several young people that were about my age at the time, younger, they were recovered as opposed to saved because they would run and hide under the bed, or they would run and hide in the closet thinking they're getting away from the flames, but in reality, they're causing their own death. How important is it for families to stage fire drills in the home?
That's one of the pieces of the puzzle, but it's not the only one. But it is the main one. But it would behoove anyone to make sure that everybody in the home knows where everybody's going, knows where the entrance, exits are, the windows that you can get out of. You should know the layout of where you live at. And you'd be surprised how people in the middle of a fire, although they could have lived in this house for the past 30 years, but that fire come around and boy, your mind is
And that's exactly the point I wanted to bring up. It's the reality that even the most well-trained, when you're in that situation, even as me driving, and all of a sudden I was talking to my brother a couple of nights ago about this car that just slammed right into me because I was on the street. There were two cars. I could have possibly thrown it in reverse and tried to, but it just happened so fast. And I remember when we had the chief of police on, he was talking about folks who want to create safety in their houses end up becoming prisoners in there in the way that there was someone trying to flee an abuser, but because they had the locks where you had to have a key to open it from the inside, by the time they got to the door, the abuser had already harmed them. Some have even been killed to that effect. And I know that it's got to be the same for those who are in a fire and you're trying to get out. And see, I don't know if people realize that I've had the chance to go through a couple of dramatizations with the fire departments in my past life. That smoke is thick, it's black, and it burns your lungs taking it in, and it burns your eyes. So what would you say to someone who's considering getting those types of locks where you need several keys to open it from the inside? I know you want to be safe, but there's got to be a balance.
I don't want to sound offensive to anyone with what I'm getting ready to say. Unfortunately, a lot of people, their perception of what might be going on in fires, they may see from movies or TV shows. It's nothing like that. And I get you want safety, but you also have to do it in common sense. Don't get yourself trapped into something, because once you ask me challenges, that's a challenge when we get there. Because now I got two guys trying to tear the door down.
Now, what about folks who want to invest in bars on the windows? And this is strictly from fire safety. Like you said, this is not condemning or condoning anything or anyone, but in the reality of fire safety, what is it that folks need to think about when they're looking into that kind of a safety measure?
I would seriously think about, if I wanted to put bars on my house, I would have to seriously think about a backup plan. Once again, if you're trapped, you're trapped. You may want to leave a window that everybody knows that it's not barred, so you can get out of there. Once again, I do understand the safety part. I really do. But that's not really being safe.
Okay. So, and the other thing about the home is, I know that, and especially during this pandemic that we're in, a lot of folks lost their homes and they've moved in, and they now have their parents, their grandparents moving in. That's still a factor I don't think people really focus on, because nobody, I think, really says, well, yeah, it's likely my house could catch on fire. But in the event that it is, because I remember back even when I heard the stories in Hurricane Katrina down in New Orleans, the family members who were in those wheelchairs, they really didn't have an escape route because, the waters had washed away the porch or the ramp or whatever it was to get them out of the house. And when folks were running to the roof, they were stuck trying to save those who were in those chairs. That's another factor I don't think people think about, is what to do when you have seniors or someone who is partially or completely disabled.
That is very true.
Yeah.
That is very true. I've come across quite a few homes that, for whatever the reasons are, were there for calls, and you'll find that the person that can't walk, can't move, can't talk, is the one that's upstairs. A challenge, that's one.
Yeah. And I've noticed that because, and that's another good point, because they normally will bring that person down because they'll take their meals upstairs. They will, the bathroom facilities are upstairs. They will primarily come down if there was a family event, if there was a doctor's appointment, or things of that sort. But it really takes people to really think about moving the folks and making sure everyone gets out safely. And I've even heard about those with physical impairments are left to watch the kids, but the kids would not be able to get that family member with the impairments out because of their size, because they're small kids. So these are just some things, and like I said, this is not to scare anyone.
No,
this is strictly about
yes.
informing and educating, because I'm old school. When you know better, you do better. And there are some things we don't think about. So we're going to take a quick break, but I want you to rejoin us after the break. We're going to talk more about house safety and things such as smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, and carbon monoxide detectors in the house. Are they necessary, and where should they be placed? We'll be right back after these breaks.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy, and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline, and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
If you or someone you know is facing eviction and has a notice to quit or a court order summons, complaint, or judgment, there is help to avoid eviction. Call the Detroit Eviction Helpline at 866-313-2520 or visit DetroitEvictionHelp.com. The City of Detroit with the State of Michigan have eviction prevention programs to assist Detroit residents with financial assistance and legal representation. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. That's 866-313-2520 or go online to DetroitEvictionHelp.com. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. 866-313-2520. Get help today.
Hi, excuse me, do you have anything for paint?
Straight down that aisle.
All right, thank you.
Young lady, this here's what you need.
Ringmaster?
Ringmaster rubbing oil.
How does it work?
By promoting circulation since 1950. Massage it in for best results.
Ringmaster took care of my back pain.
Ringmaster got rid of my knee pain, too.
Wow, it sounds like I'm late to the party. I'll take one.
Find Ringmaster at CVS, Davis Drugs, and other fine stores.
Good morning and welcome back to Highland Park Highlights. My name, let's try that again. My name is Rod Liggins. It's Monday morning, 8:25, and it's about 51 degrees outside, and you can expect it to maybe reach about a high of 60, 62. There's some light rain this morning, but sunshine is on the way, so get yourself ready to kick off this week. We're here talking with Highland Park Fire Chief Eric Hollowell, and we talked about things in the house that people can do. I want to talk now about fire safety by way of smoke alarms, fire extinguishers, and things of that sort. What are things, let's start with smoke alarms. Where should smoke alarms be placed in a home?
Kitchen, one that's close by your bedroom, and basement.
Now, we know that those of us who call ourselves, using finesse and the culinary skills in the kitchen, a lot of times we will tend to want to take it down or at least remove the battery because, at some time or some way, something's going to cause something to burn, whether we're not paying attention or have the flame up too high. That should not take place. You want to make sure that we're telling folks that they need to keep that fire alarm and smoke alarm engaged.
Absolutely. It does no good to have it if you're going to cut it off when you need it. Like, I get it. It's annoying. Crack a window, crack a door, put a fan in there, but don't cut
That's something I have had to learn to do. I took down the light fixture and put one in with the fan attached because, like I said, man, you try to do certain things, but if you get caught up in the game or you're on the phone not paying attention, things happen. Another thing that folks talk about is carbon monoxide detectors, and they don't get the same type of publicity that the smoke alarms do. But why are those so necessary?
They're extremely necessary because they detect something that is the human doesn't know is there. We don't have senses for it. So that's one of the things that you should also have in your house with the extinguisher and detector is a CO2 detector.
Okay. Where should those be placed?
By wherever your furnace, hot water tank, somewhere in that area.
Okay. Because that was a thing that we were discussing earlier. It's, you don't see it, you don't smell it.
Silent killer.
But exactly. And we've seen folks and we've heard stories about people who, in the event that their gas was shut off, they're using other means to heat the house, and it's giving off fumes. I remember using a kerosene heater, but the one I had was geared strictly for outdoor because it had that output of those fumes, and I had it in the house, and it just so happened that, I could tell it felt like I was almost drunk. I was like dizzy. I was getting tired. And when I look up, I realized I read the warning on there. So those are some things that I know folks do, and it's a reality because we've had a lot of utility shutoffs, and this is not just in Highland Park, but across the board, especially during the pandemic. And I know that they've been doing things and working with customers, but I even saw a gentleman last year bringing a propane tank in the house. And I just wanted them to hear from you how very unsafe and dangerous that is.
That's extremely dangerous. Propane or kerosene inside of your home for heating purposes, that's a recipe for disaster. And propane that becomes a huge missile if something goes wrong with that.
Yes. That's the other thing I didn't even think about. And that's what I'm saying about, I'll just crack a window but you can never have enough ventilation for something that is supposed to be outdoors from the beginning. So I just wanted to bring that home. I know that my father used to always make sure we had fire extinguishers in the house. Again, where should those be placed?
I would definitely place one in my kitchen, in an area that you and maybe most of the family might hang out at. We'll put one there, then by the bedrooms, if you can. If not, if nowhere else, at least the kitchen, because of the stove.
And it's imperative that people know how to use them. It's one thing to have them, but like you said, in a panic mode, and you're rushing to go get it, and if you're having to read the canister to get the instructions on how to use, that's valuable time that could go from bad to worse very quickly.
I totally agree with that. And since you mentioned that, we will allow citizens, if they need it, to come by the fire station, and one of the guys will train them on how to use it, if they need that. But even with an extinguisher, you should still use common sense when fire. So no matter what, I get it. I really do, the safety part, but you got to be careful with that.
Now I know that when I was in college, I helped a friend of mine. She had a flat tire. I go to change her tire, and I asked her, I said, why do you keep your fire extinguisher in your car? You should take this in the house because that's where it's needed. I had no idea that it was a precaution to have one in your car because I've always figured, like you said from TV, car's on fire, you run, it's going to explode and it's just going to, shake the whole block and things like that. But in reality, an engine fire could be extinguished if you have the proper type of fire extinguisher.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another place that they could make sure they have one. And on average, how often should it either be recharged or thrown out and replaced?
There is an expiration date somewhere on that device, depending on where you get it from and who the manufacturer is. But somewhere on there is a date to let you know when it needs to or when it's expired.
Okay.
Because the majority of what you're going to buy is a dry chemical extinguisher. A water extinguisher does you no good for grease.
Right.
But it somewhere on that canister, it has an expiration date.
Okay. So that's what I was saying before about making sure not just having it, but reading it and knowing how it works. It's like a firearm. You can buy a gun, but if you don't know how to use it, you can cause more damage to your family than the protection you think you're providing. Is there anything else? I know that a lot of folks have fireplaces and they don't necessarily have the glass to cover. And I remember just recently I was enjoying a fire, then all of a sudden you hear the crackling, but really that's popping, and then these are little sparks or little things of flame that they're not extinguished, they're still glowing on my carpet, and I had to hurry and do that. So what are some of the things that folks can do in and around the fireplace?
I would keep any clothing, any furniture, as much as possible away from the entrance to the fireplace. I would try to make sure that I'm not overstuffing the fireplace with wood because I want to heat the whole house. Those are two big ones right there. And just pay attention to it. Don't just walk away from it.
And last, the thing I want to touch on that a number of folks do, smoking. There are a number of folks who they'll have a last cigarette before bed or right in the bed, and they may think they've put it out or may have inadvertently knocked it over and it's not out. The same with someone who can fall asleep with a cigarette in their hand. What advice would you give smokers when it comes to fires, as well as keeping the lighters away from kids?
Not to get too far into the description of what I'm referring to, but I've been to multiple fires where people have perished themselves along with the home from smoking.
Wow.
That's very real. I know people may drop a cigarette and they think all it does is burn a little hole. Depending on where you are and what it is you're dropping it on, be careful. If at all possible, I would not smoke in my bed. And even if you smoke at your couch, I would make sure that the ash is out, the cigarette's out, before I just walk away from it.
Because I remember I used to love to grab my grandfather's cigars. And it took a lot more to put those out than it did a cigarette. And we would play with them, but then I remember a cousin just left it laying someplace and it rolled onto the floor. Fortunately, it didn't start a fire, but there was smoke coming from the floor, and right away people were in the house were very concerned.
I've seen fires where, say you get up, you're done with your cigarette, you think you put it out, but I come along and I want to empty it, I want to clean it. I take it and dump it into the trash can.
Wow. Now that's so, I didn't think about that, because during my days of working in the auto factory, I remember a guy, you weren't supposed to be smoking. So he's smoking, he sees the supervisor or somebody come out of a cart, he flicks it, thinking it's just going to hit the ground. it went right into the rag bin, these oily, greasy rags. And he kept walking because, of course, it didn't just woof all of a sudden.
No, for sure.
But we're working on the line, and this is behind us, so you start to smell something, you turn around, and you just see a wall of smoke, and it's just coming out, billowing from this huge barrel. This line was stopped. We had to get out of the area. They called the local fire department. They had extinguishers on there. They had, factories have their own fire hoses in there. All of this because of one careless flick of a cigarette. And there was no effort to put it out. He just did it because he didn't want to get caught.
A lot of the homes here in Highland Park and Detroit, a lot of these homes are 100 years plus. You're talking about 100 years worth of dry wood.
Yes.
Just waiting to burn.
Wow.
So
that's awesome. And that's why I'm glad to have you here today. And when we come back, we're going to talk about, now that the seasons are changing and we're getting into more warmer weather, there are some fire safety tips that we need to follow outside. So be sure to join us and come right back. It's 8:37, and we'll be right back with more fire safety tips with Highland Park's Fire Chief.
Watkins Broadcasting is going worldwide. Now you can watch Detroit's own WHPR on your TV from anywhere in the world. No matter where you are, you can stay in the know with WHPR TV and Roku. You can get your easy-to-install Roku box from wherever you shop for your entertainment gear. Once your Roku box is connected to your TV and internet, go to the channel store on the home menu of the Roku box. Enter WHPR TV in the search engine and add it to your channels. That's it. That's all you need to get the best in entertainment, news, and talk, no matter where you are. Roku brings all of your favorites to your TV. Netflix, Hulu Plus, Crackle, HBO Go, and now WHPR TV, Detroit Live.
Shelley Books and More. Short stories, poetry, and art contests for the youth. Cash prizes, $300 to $500 plus prizes. No entry fee. Go to ShelleyBooksandMore.com. Contact Shelley at 313-778-8009. Submit entries now and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Shelley Books and More. Also, listen to Shelley Books and More every other Tuesday, 4 p.m. on FM 88.1 WHPR. Radio we can see.
We at Watkins Broadcasting care about the health and safety of our viewers and listeners. During this novel coronavirus pandemic, please protect yourself and others. Wash your hands well and often. Avoid touching your face. Cough and sneeze into your sleeve. Practice social distancing. Stay at least 6 feet away from others when in public and only leave the house when it's essential. Stay safe. You are important to us.
Good morning and welcome back to Highland Park Highlights. I am your host, Rod Liggins. It's 8:40 on Monday morning, and I'm joined with Highland Park Fire Chief Eric Hollowell, and we're talking about fire safety in and around the house. We now want to focus on the spring-summer fire safety tips. We've talked about, when you want to place a fire in a fireplace during the winter months and ways that folks keep warm that are not as orthodox as others. I want to talk about fire safety outdoors. And let's start with my favorite thing is barbecuing. I love to grill. I do it even in the wintertime, I got to tell you, so you know. But there are some safety measures that folks need to know about, and I want to talk about the if some things are legal, if some aren't. Some folks, if it's raining, the first thing they want to do is pull their grill either on the porch under an awning or roll that sucker right into the garage, and they think they're keeping themselves dry, but how big of a hazard is that?
That is the biggest mistake you could possibly make, is a barbecue on a wooden porch or in a wooden garage. Once again, 100-year-old wood. just waiting to burn.
Nothing but dry wood.
Just waiting.
So now, is that something you can be cited for? If you're, like I said, you're grilling on the porch, and like you said, of a wooden house, or you have an awning that's vinyl or something, or whatever the awning is made of, or if you're grilling in the garage, is that something you can be ticketed for?
Don't quote me on this, but I believe Highland Park has an ordinance against barbecuing on the front porch.
Okay.
Garage-wise, that's a little bit different. Depending on what you're doing, like, you could be considered arson, depending on what it is you're doing. But I think there's something for the porches.
Okay.
I believe there is. You'd have to get with Chief Coney regarding that.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So let's look at a standard house. You have a front yard, porch, driveway, backyard, garage. Where is your recommended place to set the grill that would be the safest place outdoors?
The side of the house, if you have a driveway, would be perfect.
Okay.
If not, find an open spot in your backyard, away from the home, away from any structure back there, any gas cans from where you may be cutting grass, the whole 9 yards, but anywhere away from the home, if at all possible, and unlike brick, preferably.
Okay. Now that's something that I did notice, and not just the grilling aspect. They don't do it much now because you don't have a lot of bikes with the inner tubes. But as a kid, we didn't just glue the patch. We lit a match, and that was supposed to add extra intensified, patching of that hole. But I remember the young man, he was about my younger brother's age, and they were right next door. When he did that, he threw the match and it went into the garage. And like you said, it landed either on or near the gas can. And when he went to go in there for something, it exploded. He suffered third-degree burns. He survived, but he ended up passing away several years later from things that happened from that fire.
Sure.
And that's the thing that people realize now. Of course, that's not going on. But the other thing I wanted to talk about outside as it relates to fire are fireworks. This state now, it's legal to have fireworks, and they set off firecrackers, and the ones that I used to like were the ones that just went up in the air without making a lot of noise. You have now, there are folks walking around lighting what they call M80s. And it's like either a quarter or a third stick of dynamite. And they will tell you, we want to see how many car alarms we can get to go off. Are there things that people should do when it comes to fireworks? Because we know the first thing, the kids are going to be just gravitate right towards it. But what are some things that parents need to do if they are going to participate in personal fireworks? We're not talking about off the river or downtown or wherever the case may be, but these are the ones that you can buy on the side of the road or at some party stores. What are some of the things that parents need to be on the lookout for?
I have to throw this disclaimer out there for anybody that may get mad at me. I don't understand the need for a person to live on a residential street to have something that belongs in a park. I don't understand that, number one. But then number two, people need to remember what goes up has to come down.
Yes.
And once again, that 100-year-old wood just sitting there waiting to burn. And then you got grass. A lot of places where grass, if it's not cut, it's going into dry grass. So you're dealing with that problem as well. So it's got it. I get it. Everybody, they like the sight, but you got to be sensible with that, because some of the stuff I don't understand why that is legal for a resident to have. I don't understand that.
I tell you, and I'm not going to try to act like I'm naive. I've been out and I've even used some as a kid and even as an adult. But there were things that we couldn't use. My parents let us know, no, this is, no. But if it went up, and like you said, what goes up must come down. I remember the guys next door, they were older than me and my brothers, and they were setting them off, which was good, and they had their nephews and nieces, and we just watched. But they would put them in a can and light them. This one particular can fell over, and it went straight across the street. So they just, okay, let's put up another one, but they didn't notice that one had went into a pile of leaves in the man's yard across the street. And I said, where'd it go? Where'd it go? And it was at night. All of a sudden, there's this little trickle of fire, but smoke is coming up from this pile. And that was the thing that just amazed me. It was that quick. And these guys, and it had gone through a fence. So when I told them that, they had on the house slippers, but they ran over, jumped the fence, and they're using their shoes to put it out. They did get it out, but they came back looking like, Fred and Barney. They had no shoes because it burned through those shoes. And that's how serious it was that quickly, how it just manifests into a fire that, like you said, fortunately, it was up against brick, but that didn't mean the leaves weren't burning, and it could spread all along the side of the house.
That same rule applies to fireworks with a home. If it goes into a crack somewhere in the house that you don't think about it, you don't see anything when you look up, go in there, go to sleep. Heaven forbid, 3 o'clock in the morning, now you and your family trying to fight to get out of the house.
Yeah. And these are things, again, like I said, we're on here today to talk about fire safety, to be proactive. It's not that you should never do anything with fire, but you have to be safe with it. Fire spreads quickly. You don't know what's, like you said, a wooden house, that little flame shoots up with the quickness. You have something in that carpet that's synthetic and it's melting. It just shoots across that floor. And people think, like you said, from television, hurry, get out, hurry. And, the flame is just this big. But it can go from 0 to 60 in a heartbeat. And even if it's not a flame, it's really that smoke that really can harm somebody. There are people who have died from smoke inhalation, and they were in an area where the fire never got into that room, but they never got out. And that's why I wanted to make sure it's important that folks know, yes, another thing is you do it like you said. Let's say we got a couple of weeks, no rain, and you're shooting it up and it's gotten into a tree. And people don't think, well, man, it's not going to burn it. And I've seen that for myself. The fire, you see people trying to get their water hose.
Yes.
Your water hose can't shoot that high up.
Yes.
So this is why we want to stress, we're not saying don't enjoy outdoors, but you got to be safe with it. You got to make sure that when you're grilling, you keep certain things around. I used to keep a bag of sand because I know that, you got the water hose there, but you spraying. A friend of mine, he used to do this, and if you remember the old Eddie Murphy joke about, that's a fire. You just sit and you see people just squeezing the lighter fluid. I'm like, man, that's a 2-quart bottle, and you got like drips of it left in there. But some folks think that's what you have to do.
It's so dangerous.
And especially when you're shooting it. Now, I read it, and I say, they tell you, put the charcoals in there, put the lighter fluid on the charcoals, let it sit. Nowhere does it say if the fire looks like it's going out, you squeeze it because that flame would draw right to the fluid. And I mean, and I've seen people fall backwards, and I've seen people just get stunned because the flames just move so quickly.
You said it best. This is not to scare anyone, but I couldn't agree with you more. Have fun. But do it with common sense. Just common sense. A lot of the stuff, it doesn't take you to go to a class or have a degree in it. Just common sense. Just be careful.
And there's one thing also I know that we do pretty much daily, and that's going to the gas station. I cannot believe the number of people that'll have that cigarette hanging off their lip or a cigar, whatever they're smoking, and they're, doing what they got to do, pull that sucker out, and they start, and I just get like, I'm backing my car up already because I already know that just a fire waiting to happen, man. So come on.
If you look at most of the gas stations, if they're legit, if you look at the gas stations, they have signs up that says no smoking and shut your engine off.
Yes.
How many people have you seen that leaves their car running regardless? And
Well,
like you said,
it's cold. I'm only getting $5, so I don't think I have to shut it off. And And it's so ironic that when we had a police chief on, we talked about folks leaving their car running, and then they go inside. I'm just gonna pick up a bag of chips and a pack of cigarettes and something. And I mean, in that quick of an instant, we have seen people taken away. We have seen cars stolen, and kids are still in there.
Yes.
And when they take off, they're not trying to abide by speed limits. They're streaking out of there. And those are the things that I think people need to realize is we're talking about it because we want you to be engaged. We're not trying to scare you from getting gas.
No.
But the same as we talked about last time with the police chief about if you see people just, mulling around and standing around, that may not be the best place to go. I mean, we're two fairly decent sized guys, but I know that if I see 2 or 3 guys that like to just standing around loitering, that's usually a sign for me I need to go someplace else. Because you don't know if that's just somebody waiting to offer you, for you to offer them a few bucks to pump your gas, or if they're waiting to take your car. So these are the things that like I said before, we want to engage, we want to inform, we want to make sure folks understand you can enjoy your outdoor activities.
Yes.
And people, time and again, you talked about some of the hydrants have lack of water pressure. Tell people how dangerous it can be when they park in front of a fire hydrant.
That's one of the biggest, roadblocks you could ever come across is when you have a car sitting right in front of that hydrant. We need room in front of it. And if your car is sitting there, either one or two things. Either your car's going to get damaged really bad, or we have to find another hydrant. But in the meantime, somebody's home or somebody's life is in danger because you want to be lazy and not park in a parking spot. Versus parking right there in front of the home. Another issue that we have when it comes down to hydrants are summertime. I get it; it's hot. I do. You and I both.
Oh
kids.
Yes, I know where you're going.
Everybody likes to cut the hydrant on,
popping a water plug,
and then they'll put like sticks or whatever to make the water go. I don't know, whatever. But on multiple levels, that is a hindrance for us because the trucks, they have to suck water out of there. Then the next thing is you've had this water running through this hydrant for quite some time. Now you kill the pressure for your street.
And it could be the same for other streets as well, because it's not like we have 18 different, water systems, and we have a singular water system, and one can impact so negatively others. One of the last things I wanted to talk about before we go is you've talked about being a firefighter. If someone has aspirations to join the Highland Park Fire Department, what would they need to do? Well, first, is the Highland Park Fire Department hiring?
We're always hiring, especially if they're residents of the area. But they would need firefighter 1 and 2. Depending on the person and how serious they are with it, we could probably sponsor someone for that. But you have to have firefighter 1 and 2 in order to be a firefighter now. And then also, I believe in an associate's degree now as well.
Okay. And what would they have to do to get that firefighter 1 and 2 training?
They can go to any of the majority of the colleges have a law enforcement program of some sort. And if you look online, just look for the closest place by you that puts on the academies. Majority of the colleges have them.
And I noticed you and I both have used the word firefighter. This is not just something for the fellas to take part in. These are open positions for both men and women. Any kind of physical attributes that they should have? Are there any kind of basic training where they would need to have a certain amount of endurance?
I hope I don't get in trouble for what I'm getting ready to say. But they have to have this heart. Number one, that's the biggest. That's the biggest of it all. But then the next thing is just practice.
Okay.
Work at picking up some weights or something like that. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. I know it may look, once again, looking at TV, it looks like we lift.
Well, yeah, everybody's like, you know, it's like you got to be like The Rock or somebody or Tyson to do this. Well, see, I wasn't going to point to mine. That's why I got the computer up. But I kid you not. Well, Chief, I want to thank you for coming out this morning. I think you've provided us with some valuable information that's life-saving. And we hope that you will come back with us as we get into the summer months and talk more about different types of things that people need to be aware of. But and I also want to thank you for joining us this morning on Highland Park Highlights. Get out, enjoy outdoors, but please be safe with whatever you're doing. Kick off your Monday, kick off your week outdoors. It's supposed to be a great week weather-wise. Get out, enjoy, but please be safe, and be sure to join us next week for Highland Park Highlights. Have a great week.